Hi friends, I made this video to describe how I use Octatrack for sequencing my synthesizers and overall jamming. The whole reason that I started using Octatrack was I wanted to get away from computer screen and DAW when I want to write music or whenever I want to jam. I spend too much time behind the computer monitor for my daily job and whatever I want to do. Like I think we all spend a lot of time just staring at the screen. So, for my music, I want to minimize my screen time as much as possible. And it is a lot more fun and it adds a lot of creativity to the writing process and jamming as well. So, yeah, this is an amazing machine. You have Octatrack 1 and Octatrack 2. The top one is version 1, which I have. Version 2 was released, I think, a year ago or so. Okay, let's take a look at this diagram. We have Octatrack, elektron Octatrack. If you don't know, this whole discussion is about controlling your synths, basically programming your synthesizers without using a computer. So octa means 8. Octatrack means 8 track. Octatrack in the MIDI mode has two modes. One is audio mode and the other mode is the MIDI mode. Right now we are discussing only about the MIDI mode. Imagine we have 4 synths that is controllable via MIDI signals. Octatrack is able to program all these 4 synths simultaneously. Actually, it can expand to 8, but only for the sake of simplicity, I have limited our example to 4. But you can extrapolate it and make it up to 8. The setup is going to be the same. This is the first option. One simple option. It has a drawback and it has some advantages as well. We're going to discuss both. Let's take a look at the physical setup. From MIDI out, all these lines here are basically the MIDI cables. From MIDI out, it goes into MIDI in of the synth 1, and from MIDI through of the synth 1 goes to MIDI in of the synth 2, and from MIDI through of the synth 2 goes to MIDI in of the synth 3, and so on. And you can go up to 8 synths. Octatrack input is a MIDI controller, a MIDI keyboard, and we will discuss why this is the case. Actually, this is optional, but it is highly recommended. Now, this was my initial setup, and it has some drawbacks. The advantage is you don't need a Midi Hub. All you need is a bunch of Midi cables and your synthesizers. But the disadvantage is, as you see, like it's a daisy chain, right? Your daisy chain. And when you daisy chain the cables, it creates signal drop when it gets to the subsequent synths, like after synth 4 or after synth 3. And also it generates some sort of latency. I haven't experienced the latency, but I have heard people complaining about it. So it has two drawbacks here. Here's the option 2, using Midi Hub. This setup doesn't have the problems of option 1, so no latency, no drop signals. From Octatrack MIDI out, it goes to MIDI input of the Midi Hub, and Midi Hub, what it does, it replicates what's coming out of Octatrack MIDI out, replicates, creates a copy with the same signal strength, and distributes it to the synthesizers directly. So every synth will get the first-hand signal. No second-hand, no reuse signal is going to be passed through one synth to another. Much more reliable, and it's been working great. The only downside is you have to buy a Midi Hub, and it runs around probably $50 to $150 depending on the number of outputs you have. I purchased mine from Sweetwater, and my brand is called Midi Solutions, and it's been working great. Before we get hands-on with the synthesizers and the Octatrack, let's see what is inside a Midi cable. MIDI cable is similar to basically cable TV. You know, the cable TV, the program, all the channel informations are already inside the cable TV. But your TV, via your remote controller, you basically tell the TV which channel the TV should tune into. Let's say if you want to watch channel 1, the TV tunes into channel 1 and displays the information that is tagged as channel 1, which is the news, for example. Or you can switch to channel 2 and watch cartoon. But we know that inside the cable, simultaneously, all that information exists. This is the same for MIDI cable. So inside a MIDI cable, you can have simultaneous notes, velocity, and other program changes such as the filter and resonance and all those parameters that you see on a synth, all those informations simultaneously for multiple synths in multiple channels. If you think about option 1 setup, that's how Octatrack can control 4 synths simultaneously with only 1 cable going out of Octatrack. Meaning, the Octatrack output single cable will already have the information for all the synths, up to 8 synths. But of course, the cable can accommodate a lot more channels than 8. Okay, now the same cable with channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, information is connected to synth 1. Right, this part is synth 1 and this is the cable. Sorry for the bad graphics. Now, we are telling synth 1 to listen only on channel 1. What does that mean? It means it will only listen to it will only react to the information that are tagged as channel 1, and it will ignore the rest. Okay, now let's look at the real life setup. This is the setup that I have in my studio. Nord A1R is basically consists of 4 individual and independent synthesizers. You have slot A, slot B, slot C, and slot D, and each of them you can look at each of them as independent synthesizers. Octatrack has 8 basically tracks. Track 1 through 4 on the left and track 5 through 8 on the right. Now we can assign 1 track to a synth. So let's assign track 1 to synth A or slot A, because each of them are individual synthesizer. Let's call the A as synth A. Like, look at this whole Nord lead A as 4 individual synthesizers in one box. So you got synth A, synth B, synth C, and synth D. Let's assign track 2 to synth B, track C, synth C, and track 4 to synth D. How do we link them? We assign channels. To track 1, let's assign channel 6. To synth A, let's have synth A to listen to channel 6. Let's assign track 2 channel 7, and synth B listen to channel 7. Track 3 to basically generate signal on channel 8, and have synth C to listen to channel 8. And track 4 to submit information on channel 9, and have synth D to correspond to basically listen and react to channel 9. Okay, here we conclude the part 1 of this series. In the next part, I'll be going over the actual connection from Octatrack to the synth and how I set the channel for each of the tracks and each of the slots on the Node A. If you have any comments or feedback or any questions, please leave in the comments below and I will get back to you.